So, welcome everybody to this discussion on Project Fear's first episode. I am Chris Whitehouse, founder of Whitehouse Investigations, and this is my teammate Lucy. Hello, Lucy.
Hello.
We're going to see if we can add anything to the programme because we are investigators of over 12 years, and so we know what situation Destination Fear, Project Fear, we're in and the equipment and things. So that's what we endeavour to do. This is spoiler full, so it's really important that you watch their episode first. I don't want to tread on your enjoyment of that show. The first episode, Sweet Spring Sanatorium. With that out of the way, talk about the episode. So Lucy, the split from Discovery and all that, it seems like a really good thing for them. What do you think?
I think so, yeah. When I first saw the announcement that they were cancelled from Discovery, I was like, oh my God, I didn't know what they were going to do from there. But when they did the crowdfunding and everything, I went on to donate because it said they were going to move it to YouTube and they needed the funds to move it over there. I went on to donate and try and, be part of it, but they'd raised way more than they even needed.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, brilliant. And then they've really quickly gone from that to production, and to have it on YouTube, I think is really, really, really good. And you could tell in the making of it and what they were allowed to put on that they feel so much more comfortable and they can be themselves more on YouTube. So, yeah, I think it's going to work out that it's probably the best thing that will happen to them.
Yeah, and I think it's paved the way for others to possibly think similarly, because I know Dave Schrader was talking about, well, do you want to see Devil of Somewhere Else now? Everyone might be thinking, well, yeah, why are we subservient to some big corporation when YouTube is the second biggest search engine on the planet right now?
Yeah.
The place itself, Sweet Spring, used to be a mineral spring resort in eastern Monroe County, West Virginia. This was since like the 1700s, and then this hotel was built by William Lewis in 1792. It changed ownership several times, and it was a sanitarium for tuberculosis patients. Then it ended up going to the state of West Virginia, who bought it and made it a memorial home for the aged. Literally, it was sold and sold again at various enterprises that failed. And as it mentioned on the show, the first show they did there, people that own it a long time. But it ended up being auctioned away to be a bottled mineral water business. Now, yes, they do ghost tours. Who wouldn't? That's a nice little help it get renovated or whatever they want to do with it. So did you happen to rewatch, or do you remember the first time they went there?
I remember bits from it, yeah. And I remember how they left. But I think like you were saying about them doing ghost tours and stuff there, when you look at the building, I probably would as well, because it looks the part and it clearly has got the spirits to go with it. So yeah, but yeah, I remember them going the first time, and when they said that the first episode coming back they'd be going back there, I was like, yeah, that's a good shout.
Yeah. So on the first visit they had like bang, quite loud screams, footsteps, and if you remember Tanner shouting at someone who seemed to be mimicking them and stuff. Like he's hearing voices, and yeah, they were between Chelsea and Tanner, and then they couldn't find anybody, but they were obsessed with thinking this is somebody really there, which is quite terrifying. So the duck is at 1 minute 39 seconds. I finally found it.
I didn't find it.
I'll put the screenshot on screen now. They were saying this is the only location that scared us out. You can see all the excitement is really high amongst them. They're all so giddy. I think us as an audience actually are just as giddy and as excited for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're celebrating the fact that it's going to continue. They talk about this location just like we talk about York. Yes. We have a location in England where we left without normal service. We kind of came away and were away for quite a few years, and we talked about that for ages, didn't we, in between? Yeah. So we have similar cases because although we don't have money behind us, we do it just for the little bit we can get in here and there. We share quite a lot of experiences that they do. And you're very brave, it has to be said. So you will go off on your own. And although you will get scared, you still face it out. You know what I mean? You're like, yeah, I'm scared, but I'm doing it anyway. What is your technique?
I think I noticed this in the new episode as well. I think it was Tanner and Dakota both had moments where they heard stuff down a corridor, and it's that moment where every fibre of your being is telling you to run the other way, but you run towards it. And they both did that, and I can so relate to that. It's a weird feeling, but I just force myself to go towards the danger and not away from it. Because I think it's sometimes you worry that you don't capture the true fear of the place, because every place has got its own vibe, and then obviously with everything going on top of that, the fear feels different in different places. So I think if you run towards the fear, or at least stand your ground, that helps to capture for the audience exactly what you're feeling in that moment. Yeah, you've just got to sit with the fear, I think, and then plow on, because that's how you're going to get your evidence. Running away is not going to, you're turning your camera away from what's happening if you're running away. So, yeah.
I would have to say that you and I in particular, and I think the team as a whole, are braver than they are. We've done this seemingly for longer, or we act much more cooler. Do you not think? I think to us, a lot of it is mundane. It's like, oh, you've left your torch in the cellar. Well, I'll just go get it. There's none of this. Oh my God. It's only certain places where you're spending a long period of time on your own, which I do want to dial up with the team. I do think we should take some influence from Destination Fear, Project Fear, that where, like we say, okay, for the next 30 minutes, one person is going to be in the building on their own, walking around.
Yeah.
Maybe we should see what activity that drums up, if there is any correlation to being on your own and having experiences. But we do pretty well when we're a team. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I think they let the fear rule, which is their experiment, isn't it? And I think we should be more vulnerable sometimes and allow our fear to really take hold, but still do it anyway. I think that's what they're really good at, and I think that's why there's a lot of hype about, oh, Tanner's got to go to the basement on his own. That drums up the fear a bit more. So I think we should be a bit more vulnerable sometimes, and send each other off on our own more.
Yes. They talk about the witching hour, 3 a.m. I don't think we really go along with that thought, do we?
I never used to, but from doing, obviously when we go out, we tend to be home by 1, 2 a.m, maybe the latest that we've ever done. But when I've done some on my own, I have found that things do tend to ramp up around, between 3 and 4. It's not always bang on 3, but in that hour, I do think there is something to it.
I've got a question mark next to that, because when I've been on investigations with other teams and ones I've paid for, like Sue and I from our team, for example, by 3 o'clock, rather than activity being there, we're all just a bit bored. We're all ready to go home. We're tired. It's like, you know what, I've tried getting you to do what I want you to success or not. So that's how I think it. But yeah, on your own, we haven't really tried.
No, but I think patience is important as well, because I noticed when they were, I know we'll come back to that, but when they were doing the spirit bot, it said time elapsed 25 minutes where they didn't get anything. And I was thinking, I don't think I'd sit there for 25 minutes with nothing and carry on. But it's so paid off for them with what they got. So maybe patience as well is something we could.
Yeah, but when we're live streaming, you can't help but feel the pressure to click. Okay, no, it's not working. Let's click. When really the live stream is like, look, you guys can come and go as you please. We're just doing our normal thing. We're going to sit here for half an hour asking out for this. Yeah. Chelsea ends up praying in the from before. I don't think we've ever got a reaction like that. I don't think any of us are quite so religious. But yeah, Chelsea praying. She's obviously, it really shook her, but she still comes back and does more. So fair play to her.
Yeah.
So when they were doing the setup at the beginning outside, they're talking to the location manager, Cindy, and the door knocks next to Alex, and then Alex jumps out of his skin. Bang's pretty good. That was a good bang, and seems like, there was nobody in there. We've had that ourselves, I should say, as well. I can put a clip of that here. Ooh, that even nice one.
You scared me because you grabbed me.
So then they start talking about it knows your name, because it mentioned Chelsea, mentioned Tanner, and it's like, yeah, they do They do know your names. We've had that all the time, haven't we?
Yeah.
Then they read the packet and they sort of put all the information up front. Whereas we don't do that because it's like suggestion. I worry that when they're reading out the packet, they're putting all the information and names and dates and what's there into their heads, preloading. What do you think about that?
I think usually when I think about that, it comes down to integrity and worrying that people will think, oh, well, you already know loads about the location, so obviously you're going to get stuff. But I think once you've established, like they have, and I think we have, once you've established and your audience know that you're trustworthy and you're not there to fake anything, I think that doesn't matter so much. I think it's probably good to know more. I used to try and go in blind for that reason because I felt like I had a point to prove. I wanted to get information that then afterwards we could verify and say, oh yeah, that was true. But the truth is, I don't think people want a follow up as such after an investigation that's just about information. I think people do prefer that up front. Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly helps get the vibe of what to expect. And sometimes if you know what to expect, you know what equipment or to crack out, or you know what Esther's method, or we always see these lights, well, you're going to get more cameras out, or baby monitors, whatever your equipment you need. And Chelsea sees an orange flashlight during the packet read. So ghosts as lights, what's your theory on that?
I think there's truth to them manifesting as light, because I think, well, light is energy, isn't it? So I don't think orbs are a thing, or if they are, there's too much dust to even bother sorting through what's dust and what's not. And I like that they don't bother with the whole dust thing. No. So manifesting as a light that appears as a flashlight going from side to side, I think that probably was paranormal. And considering that they obviously have permission to be in the building, I would imagine that it's quite a remote area and there's nobody around anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, that was interesting. Like you say, they don't do orbs on the night vision camera or whatever. Or if they do, if you see them, they know it's dust. They've edited. Once you've edited for several investigations, just in your torchlight, you can see thousands of dust things go past, and you're like, yeah, that's the explanation.
Yeah.
But that's where we're with it, and that's where they're with it. So the most active floor being the third floor, with the black mold room on the second floor, 3007. Or was that a third floor? Probably third floor. But unexplained moan heard. Then a basement with slave quarters. Now the third floor being the most active, where people don't go because of the black mold. I think it seems like spirits go basements or attic because the living are in the other ones. It's like they retreat to their own space.
I think so. Yeah.
It's not like that we haunt reception in a hospital. It's the weird back room way down the hall.
Yeah, I do wonder why. I sometimes think it might be because it's quieter there and they can claim the space more. But yeah, I mean, basements are creepy anyway. But from my experience, when we've been to places with basements, or like, I don't think we've ever done an attic space, but you can still go in a basement and it won't necessarily feel like there's anything there. But then you go into some and you're like, ooh, this is oppressive. And that one that they did looked really scary. And the fact that it was like the slave quarters as well.
Yeah.
There's going to be some energy down there.
Yeah. I mean, not just slave quarters, but like mistreatment was down there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Can you feel the atmosphere changes when you investigate?
Yes. Yeah. It's usually, because that's why I like how we do just like a walk round and we see what's normal before we start. Yeah, and that, I think that's good, because you can feel when something, it's not always a negative change. Sometimes it's just, I feel like someone's watching me now. Yeah, I tend to feel that. Do you ever feel it?
I think when you go in a basement, there's always that staleness to the air, isn't there? It's like it doesn't get fresh air in any form, and a lot of the rooms smell with a thickness, and so I notice that, and I always think, yeah, it's different to upstairs because it's stale air. But I don't ever feel there's a vibe.
Yeah.
All I think is it's claustrophobic. There's no windows. I always do it like boring and rationally like that. Yeah. Which is why I can walk down cellars on my own and don't really blink. And
Yeah.
the way that I deal with the fear is to think not what could happen, which is where the fear comes in, but what is happening right now? Nothing. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, there could be a billion monsters in that basement, but the truth of it is I walk every other step. There isn't yet, and there isn't yet, and there isn't yet. And I kind of live in the now of, when it happens, we're up S Creek, but until then, So 3 of them, Alex, Chelsea, and Dakota, go up to the 3rd floor, and Tanner goes to the basement. So Tanner, with his enhanced recorders, have you ever used one?
No, I'd love to though. I think it'd make you really on edge and amp the fear up though, because like he was saying, when he just stood on a little crack in the floor, which normally would sound like that, it sounded like, really loud. But yeah, I'd love to use one.
Well, you can do it on my dictaphone. You can plug headphones in and listen to it live. And when I've done that before you started, first of all, I heard an aeroplane. I was like, well, that's loud, the aeroplane. And then about 10 minutes later, I hear this weird demonic grumble. And I'm like, did you hear that? And teammate Jill was like, yeah, it was my stomach.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, these don't work. You can hear too much.
Yeah. No, I think it's worth it. Can you record it as well at the same time?
Yeah, while you're recording, you listen to it live. But because I'm generally leading the investigation, all I would hear is me going, it needs to be somebody who's recording us but is listening live. So you could do that if you wanted.
Or maybe for lone vigils, because then...
Excellent, yes.
Because that's what they were doing, innit? I suppose it made sense that he used it in the basement as well, like on his own, because then he knows if his stomach rumbles, he knows if he's stood on something, and you probably get a feel for like, okay, I'm moving and the sound's amping up, so that even though it doesn't sound normal, it's probably me. But then, if you stood still and something comes through, oh God, I bet that's a thrill when it comes through.
Yeah, and that's right. Fear, the idea of fear to us, what we do, it's a thrill, isn't it?
Yeah.
I want my pulse to be racing and to be scared. I do chase for that, and I don't really get it. But the odd times that I have jumped of the last year or so, it's thrilling. It's brilliant. It really
Worth it. Makes you go back for more.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. So on the 3rd floor, asking out for the woman who stares out of the window, we use a Ouija board. That's our prominent piece of equipment, and we have had a woman looking out the window of a cinema near here, waiting for her husband who never came back from. But we took that a step further. We set up the Ouija board and started talking to the woman, lovely woman. And yet, Project Fear don't use Ouija boards or mediums or whatever. So I just thought, I wish they'd actually make contact with this woman.
Yeah.
Now Tanner's Ovulus says Paul the first time. And then meanwhile, the other team starts doing the digital recorder. Those digital recorders, like Dave Schrader was saying when I interviewed him, they're like $2 or $3 grand for that particular one. And the point is that they're quite rubbish. They're quite poor audio. So you get a lot of digital noise.
Yeah.
I'm not really putting it down. I'm just saying it's got pareidolia, isn't it? It's auditory pareidolia, where you can hear different things. You make sense of it in a way. Tanner was a name that is obviously going to come to mind. Now, it's like the Yanni Laurel video on YouTube when it says the same thing over and over, and yet when it says Yanni on the screen, you're like, oh yeah, it does say Yanni.
Yeah.
And when they put Laurel up, it says Laurel, and yet it's the exact same sound. Now, when they asked Tanner to play that back later on, and what does he think, he does give us slightly different, we remember Tanner, and they were like, oh yeah, I remember Tanner. It's like, well, that's and they all describe it as clear, and yet 2 different people give different responses. But as you've said yourself, well, you tell the viewers how you listen to TVs, EVPs.
So I will, when they first play it, they usually don't put words on the screen. So I pause it there, rewind it, and I listen to it as many times as I feel like I need to. Sometimes I even write it down, and I get Colin to write down what he thinks as well. And we don't tell each other. And then we press play and we see what they think it said. And if it matches, and this isn't just Project Fear, this is like all the other ones as well. if it matches, we're like, okay, yeah, cool. That's like a class A EVP. That's what the like threshold I would require to say that's a class A is if someone can hear it without any, any ideas putting in the head, because that's what it is. If you put the words straight up and you get the same thing. So yeah, that's what I do. And with that one, I heard remember and Tanner. I didn't get the first bit. I just thought it's just too staticky. But then the fact that they kind of, the last two words they were all certain on,
Yes.
and Tanner heard we and they heard I. Yeah, I think that's quite a good EVP. But yeah, it's difficult because I feel like you have to rely on the poor quality of those recorders to be able to pick up these voices. But I don't necessarily think it's to trick the viewers. I think it's just that maybe that's what they need in order to be able to manipulate the whatever frequency and say something. So yeah, that's what I do.
Now, I know from experience when I get an EVP and I try and send, in my headphones I can hear it, and when I send it to the WhatsApp group for you guys to hear, which I haven't done in a while, people are like, "No, Chris, I can't hear it." And so even playing it out with that little tinny speaker to a camera, you lose it. When they're listening, they're like, they all agree. I'm like, yes, in the room, I take your word for it. If that's what you know, it's much better. It doesn't transfer to the television and into our ears. So there's a little bit of, I just accept. You know. So this footsteps with Tanner, which he's on his own, that's great evidence. And you can clearly hear footsteps. And then these obvious is like video. And then it says short. I think it's really important to log these words. They're random words. And that's what these boxes do spit out. Now, in the edit, a lot of these words don't make the cut. Now, he could have said, "Oh, you mean you want me to make YouTube shorts, video short?" Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But these are just two words he could have made a story out of. And that's the problem with it you've got. It's not much to go on with these words coming out.
I remember saying aloud when he got those, I remember saying, "Does it mean YouTube shorts?" And then I said, "Oh, he should probably check his camera because have they cut it short?" And then they said, unbeknownst to him, his camera stopped recording. Correct.
His camera dies, just like yours do. And there are many reasons for that. Old battery, bad charge, long use. The IR bits that you plug in on the top for night vision don't just sap your batteries. And of course, we're seeing like 5-minute section of the investigation, but they could have been down there for a good hour, and the batteries only hold so much charge. So there's not. It doesn't really, to me as an investigator, make me think spirits. Although I don't rule it out, they do seem to influence electronics. But well, as soon as that died, I'm like, our cameras do that.
Yeah.
Because normal things. So 3 of them leave the static camera and walk out. Dakota then decides to warn Tanner, and there's this loud crash followed by unexplained voice. So things are definitely happening. I mean, physical in the room, bang nearby. There's something there, and they know they've got the place to themselves. So the footsteps that you hear, or the real physical crashes, that's really good evidence, isn't it?
Yeah.
The team are on the 2nd floor. There's another unexplained crash. The team ask, "Move an item in front of us." Now, we'll do that. When you think you see movement or something, you ask for it again and again, and it just doesn't happen. It's like they need the energy, collect the energy, expend the energy, and they need to build it up again, don't they? You know?
I can always imagine the ghosts on the other side being like, "I just did that, and every time I do something, all you're doing is you want more. I'm going."
Yeah. We do it, don't we? Can you do that again? You know. So there's Tanner gets an unexplained tap. We get that because we know the buildings a lot of the time, and we recognise the building cooling. And when you go to a new location, it's such as those massive ones, it's very difficult to know what is natural, isn't it? And you're jittery and jumpy anyway. So the team then here walking. There seems to be multiple people with Tanner. He stands his ground. He's not running out. The team eventually join Tanner and they play him the EVP. He comes up with that different phrase. "We remember Tanner," although you can clearly hear it apparently. And then it goes to all the team outside talking about the location, and we do that quite a lot. We regroup and discuss what's happened. And so, yeah, I can understand. There's times when you're investigating and nothing might be happening, but it's still physically draining. And these put so much hours into it, and setting all the equipment up, and then probably having to go and they've got full SD cards. There'll be times where they need to all go to the loo and change the cards and everything, redo the batteries. It's a lot of unseen production there, especially now there's only so few of them.
Yeah.
Because there were people on the coach driver, for example, before would have helped out. So the Fear Club is advertised. Becky's joined it of our team. Becky's joined that, but it's going to go up for to a tenner, and I was like, I would love to, but I just can't afford it.
Yeah. I think, well, I was looking at the merch because I noticed they all had those really cool hoodies on, and I love the Skelly Duck, I think they call it. But they're all sold out.
I got a white one. What I think Tanner was wearing. I was looking for black. They were all sold out. So I've paid like 55 quid for a white one before it sold out. So I've got that coming to wear on this podcast in the future.
Oh, nice. I'm going to wait for the black one to come back in.
Yeah. I thought I'll be different. That's why it's
the white one's nice.
Yeah. So the static cam, while they're all outside, there's a door closing. But not just that, there's actually like the clicking of it, or turning of the handle or something, which is cool because they're literally not in the building. Yeah. Great catch. You just got to be in the right place at the right time. So they go into the basement as a team and they ask, can you knock? Well, Dr. Carter says 2 times, which again is clever because you're ruling out building cool, generally speaking. You want 2 solid knocks. That's experience right there. They break out the SB7 spirit box, as you say, 25 minutes of nothing. Now, I've ordered the spirit box, but we've always dismissed the idea, and I just want to go into a little subsection here about spirit boxes. They scan radio waves, and rather than tuning into a station, they don't stop. So what you get is blip, radio station, blip. So you do get noises, you will, because you're listening to literal radios. The theory being that between the radio stations, that white noise, spirits can talk through. It's susceptible. It's got the auditory pareidolia, like you're thinking. You could all think it said different words. That's a problem, but there's no method. Our Ouija board, as much as we get great communication, it's all fallible. There are flaws to every method, aren't there?
Yeah.
In the 1950s, American photographer Attila von Zale put his reel fed tape mic in an empty cabinet to see what sound he'd pick up. His friend Raymond Bayless went on to write the book Phone Calls from the Dead. He recorded murmured voices inside the cupboard, and that's what sort of started this ball rolling. In 2002, Frank Sumption made a version making for the one catch-all name of the Frank's bot after Frank Sumption. So ideally, you ask questions and wait and decipher what radio blips come through. And they did actually get some weird ones. At first, I was like, not sure about this. They got T, then they got Jesus. That's right, coming through the spirit box. Yes.
Yeah.
So T, they were immediately like, Tanner. Not necessarily.
No.
Jesus came through, which could have been, that could have been religious radio or something. And then Tanner's like, Jesus, my cross. I've been wearing this cross for ages. Didn't say cross. You've made the leap there. I wasn't really happy about the joining of the dots of that. Then it said Christian. I was like, okay. And then the laughing thing, the spooky laughing, could have been a radio show. But I was like, that's a bit sinister.
I think because of how quick the spirit box sweep, you get about maybe maximum half of a second when it's in a radio station. Yes. So that laugh was about maybe 3 seconds long.
It was certainly longer.
Which made me think that is a spirit and that is scary, because there's no way when you sweep in the radio stations that you're going to get the same tone, pitch, like sound over like a few seconds. There's just no way. So for it to, I think they did definitely make an assumption with the cross and everything, but I think they were on the right wavelength by the time it got to the laugh and then what happened after. It got a bit spooky.
Well, it cemented it for me. I thought, yes, you're actually on something here, because the next thing was I don't give an F word. And I was like, that's not on the radio.
No.
Not on any radio. So, yeah, then screams, and then the equipment dies. I was like, okay, I'm sold. That should not happen.
And you could tell that those screams, that was mimicking them, because they all have obviously unique tone to the voice, and even the screams. And before they even said that's us, I was like, that is them. It's like they're replaying, maybe even from last time when they were screaming, or I don't know, but sent chills down my spine when I heard that.
Yes, spirits do manipulate audio and can play it back. I mean, Si from our team before, we played a tinkle on a piano because it was in the middle of an open warehouse. Went about our investigation in the same massive room, and about 45 minutes later, we both heard tinkle, tinkle, exactly as Si had done it the 45 minutes before. And I checked all devices, and both cameras and the audio both heard it. I was like, you can see the piano, 60 foot away, and it was the exact same tinkle, like sound had been re-fed back to us. So yeah, sound does work different. Another quick story. I have a recorder on a bottom step from a cellar up to a cafe, and two of our investigators, Becky and Sue, heard footsteps walking all the way up those stairs. Now, when I play my digital recorder back, I hear one footstep and nothing else. And yet everyone in the room, well, not everyone in the room, I think there were three people actually, heard the footsteps. Clear as day, all of them. And yet my recorder didn't. That's just a good example of it doesn't work right. Or you record questions out loud and don't hear, play them back and you've got a sound.
Yeah.
Likewise, you can hear a sound, play it back and it's not there.
Yeah.
Bizarre. It's very strange. So there's an intelligence interacting here, mimicking them and trying to scare them out of the place. That is a worrying thing, something with power in that building.
Yeah. It did feel at that point, it started to just feel like sinister. So I'm really curious if they did go back in and sleep. Obviously we have to wait for episode 2. But I think there's definitely I got the vibe from the things that they caught that maybe there's a residual energy there by hearing footsteps and things as if the place was still operating. But then, I think maybe there's an intelligent spirit there that's not happy with them.
Yeah, but who knows who that would be and why it's so angry, or but it did seem to, or at least they believed it was saying, I remember Tanner. And when we have that, we go places and we say, do you remember any of us? And the glass will come on the Ouija board to the people who were there and ignore the people who weren't there before. They have a different knowledge as well. It's like outside time. Yeah. We could go really deep into that, but this is about their adventures more than ours. 4 hours they decide to split up for to go to sleep. Just 4 hours is a hell of a long time just to sit if nothing's happening. Half my working day to think that I spend a morning at work just sat in a cellar. That's the mundanity of it. I know you're going to catch some little few seconds, but it's commitment, isn't it?
Oh yeah, they're definitely committed, definitely. Because think as well of like, and I know it's funded by the fans and stuff, but still, America is so much bigger than the UK. So these locations that they're going to, they're doing it as a road trip. It's hours and hours and hours of driving, and then you get there, and then you sit in for maybe 4 hours when you're doing the overnight bit. Oh yeah, they're committed to it, definitely.
Yeah, so just a great first episode, and just as good a standard, if not better than before, and just more power to them.
Yeah, I think I noticed the part where they got the spirit box out and they said that they weren't allowed to use it before because a certain somebody claimed that they sort of made it famous. But as you just said, it wasn't made famous by anybody recently. But I'm glad they're able to use that tool and they've got more options open to them. They can literally do what they want now. They can say what they want. They can use the equipment that they want. They don't have to worry. There's no ego in Project Fear. No ego at all. Whereas with some of these other ones, I do watch Ghost Adventures, but it's just, I don't know if you saw the last episode of it. I don't know whether you'll want to keep this in the podcast, but so basically the parallel, when you look at how Destination Fear are doing now from this first episode and where Ghost Adventures are now, Zach won't travel very far anymore. because I think a psychic told him he was going to die in a plane crash, so he won't fly. And there's apparently, so they're not really venturing very far. And the last episode of Ghost Adventures that I watched, which came out last week, Zach was, you know how he always goes to demon, like, oh, I feel a demon, there's a demon, da da da, and he seems to have got really sensitive to demons over the last few years. Well, on this particular one, they were doing an investigation in a lady's room, in, I think it was maybe a hotel or something. It was in Arizona, and he stood there, and he was getting this overwhelming feeling, and I was expecting him to say, "Oh, I feel so angry, I want to punch someone," because that's, you know. But he literally said, "I just had the most amazing experience. This ghost made me want to have sex with them." I'm paraphrasing, but he literally, and I was just like, "Is this where we're going with Ghost Adventures?" Because it's not really new. Is it the shock factor now with them? You know? And I really like the rest of the team, and I don't mind Zach sometimes. But yeah, I think now we've got Project Fear, I'm like, yes, this is proper investigating. And I can imagine that if nothing happened, they just wouldn't make an episode out of it. They'd be like, oh, okay, nothing happened at that location. They wouldn't feel the need to fake anything. And I'm not saying Ghost Adventures do, but there's so much theatrics with them now. Whereas you can tell with Project Fear that they are genuinely lifelong friends, almost family altogether, that are just giddy, excited, scared together, going on this adventure that they're sharing with us all. And it's all authentic, and I love it.
Yeah. Well, they said the next episode was going to be the overnights, so that was recorded before they did the overnights. How did he know that was going to even make an episode? You know, it's like, well, the next episode is this what's about to happen. What if nothing happened? I wonder how they're going to play it. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that next time. So thank you very much, Lucy, for joining me, and we hope the viewers found some interesting insights there, and more power to Project Fear.
Absolutely.